All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Now, for the New York Mets, they went to the Pacific Northwest over the weekend looking to end their 10-game road trip on a positive note. But instead, that 5 hour plus long flight back east was one where the Mets were indeed licking their wounds. Not only were the Mets swept by the Seattle Mariners in their 3 game set, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, but New York just managed to score one single run in all 3 games as they were outscored by the Mariners 22-1. And don't get me wrong, because this was not a Seattle team heading into the series, at least, that had been playing like world beaters, as the M's themselves had been struggling of late. But it clearly looks like they have righted the ship, courtesy of the New York Mets. So first things first, where was the offense? I mean, one run throughout an entire series, that ain't a good look. I don't care who you are. Okay. The pitching was okay at times, but at the end of the day, still, you gave up 22 runs. Of course, a lot of that came last night in the 12-1 loss for the Mets, but nonetheless, this team as a whole definitely has to go out there and pick it up. One question is going to be, did the tail end of this long road trip catch up with the Mets? Possibly. I mean, they had 10 games in 4 different cities. And, it's one of those for me. The people who do the MLB scheduling, I mean, they're idiots. Okay. There's no ifs, fans, or buts about it. And I'm going to touch on that in a moment. But you know what? It could have been. I mean, you went out to Anaheim first for 3 games. You lost 2 out of 3 there. You had to go to St. Louis for a makeup game. Then you went to Denver for 3. You took 2 out of 3 against the Rockies, and then you finished up with 3 in Seattle. And of course, those 3 games, if you're the Mets, were definitely not pretty. Definitely a tough way for the Mets to end their road trip. But for their sake, even with their struggles this past weekend against the Mariners, the Mets woke up today just a half game behind the Atlanta Braves for the final wild card spot in the National League. Why? Because one would have thought heading into this weekend, okay, you know what? The Braves are definitely going to go out there and take care of their business in Denver against the Colorado Rockies. Didn't work out like that. Atlanta lost 2 out of 3 as they were struggling heading into that series, and the Braves' woes, unfortunately for them, continue. You're still a half game up on the Mets, but now you're engaged in a series with the San Francisco Giants. It was no score last I checked. But aside from the Mets, if you're the Braves, you got the Giants right there, game and a half back. So this thing could get a little tighter. And just hypothetically speaking, if the Braves do lose this game tonight, they're tied with the Mets, while the Giants would be a half game behind both of them for that final wild card spot. So let's see what happens. But last week I talked about this 9 game stretch for the Mets, and of course, the first 3 games of this stretch didn't get started on the right foot. If you're the Mets, now you got to go out there and take care of your business at home. You've got the next 9 games at home, so you got a 3 game set, which begins tomorrow night against the Oakland A's. The Mets are in no position whatsoever to look past Oakland, and then they have a 3 game set over the weekend at home against the Miami Marlins. And if you're a Mets fan, okay, you can never just overlook a series against the Miami Marlins. Just ask Met fans going back to both 2007 and 2008, the way that those 2 respective years ended for that club. And then, of course, in this scenario, the Mets do finish their 9 game set homestand rather at home next week with the Baltimore Orioles. And of course, the Orioles are, find themselves engaged with the New York Yankees for the battle atop the American League East. But nonetheless, this has been a very important stretch for the Mets. They've got to try to go out there and take care of their business at home. Why? Because right after this, they've got themselves another 10-game road trip. And again, it's one of those where scheduling gods, if you will, didn't do the Mets any favors. They're in San Diego for 4 with the Padres, and it's one of those where the Padres are playing some great baseball right now. Then after that, the Mets head to the desert for 3 with the Arizona Diamondbacks. And like the Padres, the Diamondbacks are playing some good baseball right now, as both of these teams are starting to separate from the Braves, the Mets, and the rest of the contenders for those wild card spots in the National League. You look at it like this, okay? It's one of those where if you're the Mets, you've got to play better. I know that historically the Mets have not played well in Seattle. They have not played well all time against the Mariners. They're 3-9 lifetime in Seattle. They're 8-16 overall against the Mariners since interleague play has begun. But the bottom line is somebody's got to go out there and seize the moment. The Mets were having their struggles prior to the series, hitting with runners in scoring position. Right now, the Mets are just having a problem hitting. One run came last night, courtesy of a solo home run from Jeff McNeil. That's not going to get it done. The big guys have got to hit. Pete Alonso, J.D. Martinez, Mark Vientos. Francisco Lindor has probably been swinging the best bat for the Mets sans the first month of the season. And to me, I think this is one of, if not his best seasons with the Mets. And you know what? He's got to keep it up. Pitchers, they got to go out there and execute a little bit better. And at the end of the day, this team just simply needs to go out there and seize the moment. Like I said, the scheduling gods did not do the Mets any favors with their current 10-game road trip that they just finished. They got another one coming up, 4 with San Diego, 3 with Arizona, and then 3 with the Chicago White Sox. Of course, it's not the clearly it's not the old days when you headed west. You went to San Diego, you went to LA, you went to San Francisco, and you came back east. That was the end of the day. Clearly, it's a different time. And you know what? We'll save that for another day. But nonetheless, if you are the Metropolitans, you got to go out there and get back on track. Like I said, you got to hit. More importantly, you have to hit with guys on base. And if you're the Mets, hopefully some home cooking will allow you to do that. There's still plenty of baseball left to go. You got the rest of this month as well as the entire month of September. But if you're the Mets, you got to go out there and try to get it back in gear. This team is definitely capable of doing that. They had the slow start this season before, they got back into contention, and they're right there. And it's one of those with that additional wild card spot in both leagues, especially the way that things are playing out this year in the National League. 85 wins might get you to the postseason. So the Mets are 61-57. Let's see if they can try to go out there and get at least 24 more wins between now and the end of the season to go out there and get this thing done. So will the Mets get back on track? I do believe so. I think they have another strong push in them, and I think sooner rather than later, the bats are going to get going. Sometimes you just have it when you know what everybody's in a funk, and sometimes you just have it where everybody is simply rolling. The Mets had one of those hot streaks a couple of weeks ago. They fizzled out, but I think there's still enough time in the season for the Mets to turn things around. Bad finish to what was a so-so road trip up to that point. So let's see if you're the Mets, will some home cooking allow you to get back on track as you look to get to the postseason? So, folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank all of you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you haven't already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on the X, formerly known as Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it will be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. Now you can check it out. Drop a line and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin, and I'm signing off. And I'm saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.